There's actually an official explanation about the resistance bombs, but I personally don't think that the official explanation is really necessary. According to the Last Jedi Visual Dictionary, the bombs are magnetic, which, that makes sense, but it's not really a necessary explanation. I think magnets kind of complicates things. Look, obviously there's artificial gravity on all of these spaceships. There's an up and a down inside of the crafts. If you drop a lollipop, it'll fall to the floor. So if you open up the bay doors on the bottom of the bomber and then release the bombs on their vertical track, they will fall down and continue their trajectory based off of their momentum. This requires no magnetic technology, no technological explanation. You have a payload door, and if you drop the bombs from a place with Earth-like gravity to a place with no gravity, the bombs will continue their path at the speed of free fall until they hit something or something hits them. It's Newton's first law of motion. So there's actually kind of a scientifically accurate way of explaining the bombs using the same gravity that people claim makes the bombs unbelievable. One of the strangest complaints I've heard about The Last Jedi, and look, I have problems with The Last Jedi too, I can't believe I have to keep fucking saying that, is the bombing scene at the beginning. And one of the things that people seem to have a problem with is gravity. Like, I've seen countless videos and comments and posts about how people have a problem that there are bombers that drop bombs in Star Wars, and that it doesn't make sense with how gravity works in the real world. Hey, this is Star Wars. You're gonna have a problem with scientific accuracy in Star Wars now? In a franchise that has taken more liberties when it comes to the laws of physics than any other franchise, now is when you're gonna have a problem with it. Interesting. The explanations for things in Star Wars, they're always fun, right? But if you're looking for scientific accuracy in the wars, you're looking at the wrong franchise. Are bombs in space kind of a stupid weapon in space? Yeah, I suppose it is, in real life. If the Air Force was designing some kind of space-to-space weapon, they probably wouldn't use bombs or torpedoes or bullets or lasers. They'd probably come up with something new, right? But this is Star Wars, where things are very World War II, where spaceships bank as if they're in Earth's atmosphere, where the Empire chooses to send giant, slow-ass mechanical elephants to the snow coming from one direction, instead of deploying units on all flanks, or just blowing the shit out of the rebel base from the sky. There's a lot of silly tactics in Star Wars. A lot of silly tech that doesn't really make sense if you're looking through the lens of scientific accuracy or the way things work in the real world. The Phantom Menace, two armies squaring off across from one another in a giant field as if they're in the Civil War. The Empire Strikes Back had bombers as well. I've even heard the opinion, bombers? That's old technology. Which is an opinion held by a lot of people about way more in the sequel trilogy than just the Resistance bombers. And what's really interesting to me is this is the exact same argument that we heard about the prequels and the original trilogy in the late 90s and the early 2000s. People were like, why does the older stuff seem newer than the newer movies in the timeline? It's very funny how a lot of these arguments are cyclical. Well, if you're gonna compare the real world physics of gravity, well then we might as well talk about the New Republic basically being demilitarized after the Galactic Civil War, if you want a little bit of non-film canon. So you would expect a lot of the same type of equipment to be used 30 years later. Or what about the fact that in the real world, we still fly Seahawk helicopters that are 30 years old, and planes that are 50 plus years old, and sail on ships that are even older than that. And the United States military has one hell of a budget. Look, I like complaining about stuff too in Star Wars, but sometimes arguments and complaints relative to the rest of the saga, relative to some of the movies and moments that individuals might like, are kinda goofy.